bea malo e lelei ai Tonga kotoa pe. Ho muta tali lei motor ke tau ngai POLOKALAMA mo Letio Vake Tali Folau I e fiafi tu apule lulu koe ni. Pea koe ai mo kainga, koe tau POLOKALAMA koe a o houani te tau wakai ai ki he langakari o e vai kopuna. Pea o ku whawhiawhia foki ai fiafini ko hunga ko tau I heni. Pea tasi ki walu aia tahaeni o e kau mate aki ia mahu inga ko ia e tau ulunganga whakatonga kai o maa foki o ku tau hien foki pia mo se ini ki walu pia mo se ini kau fusi se ini ki walu kau fusi ko hui ke founder foki ia o langakari vai kopuna mahu inga ko ia ke whakataratara noa e fiafini whawheki mo tau tonga ko tau pe mo mea mai ke tau kau whatape mo langakari o vai kopuna. Seini kau mafoki Darcy tai legi moa ke tau POLOKALAMA whakawike pe mo langakari o vai kopuna pe o ku fiafia foki ke tau kau whatah I ha talatala noa e lava ke whakaivia ho tau kāinga I e mahu inga ko ia e whaifatongia langakari o vai kopuna ne ngok whahoko at me pe area ka koutui o ku lave ki ai Tonga ko toa pe o ku I Amerikani. Welcome Darcy and we are so happy that you make it to our radio program today. So first of all, I know it's your first time and I know there are a lot that we need that you got for us. But first of all, I would like to ask Saini, can you start our program and then pass it on to Darcy? Thank you.
Kolpe ke o whamamaru atu, e ngai tala whatapu ko whawhaki atu me whare whamafola reani. Kai tupe mua ke mau kau atu he POLOKALAMA e whiawhia whini. Whamalo atu ke te koe emeri koe whawhainga marei. Ai ahoni, ai houani ke whaiaha tātara noa, ke he ngahi tamua ngā au e koe ia ai langakari o e vai kopuna. I he wiki ko o si, nā tau kamata mai ai a POLOKALAMA e langakari, pia mo e whaiwhikau, tangata iki ko siona whalewai, pia pehe foki he matāpure ki a maumalanga, pehe foki a Joseph, e tau tātara noa ki he mahu inga ko ia hono whao a whai POLOKALAMA koe ni he langakari ko hono pātolo aki ai tau ngahi tala whakafonua mai ngahi whaiwa mai tau rea. I he whiawhini o ku tau whataha mai ai mo he tō taha papalangi ko na ingoa ko Darcy ki waru pa te utuku pe ka Darcy ke me whawhiloa ki mai ia ki e te tau tolo so she can introduce herself and what she does as a profession. Ko ngā ke so you can let the people know who you are. Tā koe tau POLOKALAMA koe ni o ku whai ai hanga atu ki he ngahi POLOKALAMA ai langakari ki o katopa o ta oni. Ai koe ngahi POLOKALAMA koe ia whawhikau aki ia mo e tau ngahi patolo aki koe ia e tau ngahi whaiva pa pehe foki ki e tau ngahi tokoni koe ia ko kamata atu ki Tonga I taoni. So, Darcy, would you please introduce yourself?
Mahalo, Seni. Ko hoko hinoa ko Darcy Kivalu. I am married to Matiake Kivalu, Seni's first cousin, who comes from Nuapapu, Vava'u. And I am excited to be on this show today to share with all of you some insights on the Tongan culture being relevant and important in our Tongan children, and in my case, my half-Tongan children. By trade or by work, I am a mortgage loan officer, so I help folks with the loan to purchase their home, and I love it. I've been in finance since I was 22, and I just turned 46, so I'm almost at 25 years. It's been a long time. My white hair shows it, but I love what I do. I work with several Tongan real estate agents. We spread a lot of information across the community about home buying. So I know it's not why we're here today, but that's a little bit about me. And love the Tongan culture, love the Tongan community, and I'm excited to be here. So thank you.
Wow. E merito wat peka koe ki ke whai tau ngai
Thank you. Thank you, Darcy. As we can see, that you are palangi. And the Langakali is talking about the importance of the culture of our community. And from your point of view, why do you think that that it is important for your kids, which is half Palangi, half Tongan, to know about their culture, and to really mastermind what's in there? Why?
So I will start off by saying I was introduced to the Tongan culture when I was 22 years old. I had a Tongan family at the church kind of take me under their wing, the Tonga Vake family. We're all still very close today, funny enough, long before I met my husband. I was 34, 33. And really quick, on just a side note, before I dive into your question, if that's okay, is I love this Tongan culture. My family comes from the South, so New Orleans and Texas. So I was raised in the Pacific Northwest in Portland, Oregon, but with very Southern family. Politeness, respecting your elders, having good manners. A lot of that upbringing for me translated over into the similarities in the Tongan culture. And so I think it was a natural gravitation for me when I was introduced to the Tongan culture. They're like, oh, I could see myself, amongst these folks and what have you.
Right.
But to fast forward is I married a Tongan from Tonga. And for me, and what I saw growing up in the very diverse cultures that I was around growing up, is how important it is as a Palangi to immerse yourself in the culture first. Right. You need to have an understanding of what the culture is about, get an idea of how to cook the food, or how to speak the language, or what are some traditional practices of the Tongan culture. And so as Matiak and I, started having our family and growing our family, I knew from the very beginning it was incredibly important for them to understand the Tongan culture. And the Tongan culture, from my perspective, is one of the more richer cultures in the world, just based on traditions, family values, their religious values, all of that encompassing is something that I was attracted to and knew would be important for my children. And so with that being said, I knew that marrying a Tongan, it came with some responsibilities for myself. So watching families, it's mostly women, that's carrying on a lot of the basic traditions of the Tongan culture. So traditional dress, kahoas, kiekis, tauvalas, the dance, the taulunga. Sani was kind enough when New Zealand, I think she was only 4, maybe not even 4 yet, to try to teach New Zealand to dance. But she performed at our local high school for their luau, and she's going to dance again next month for them. But for me, it was just watching all of these women gather around as aunties, sisters, cousins, parents, grandparents, and really focusing their energies to helping out the youth of the culture, right?
Right.
Teaching them the dances, making their costumes, their which I'm now forgetting, of course, now that I'm on the spot. Their costumes for like their taulunga, making the kahoas, cooking the food, understanding the traditions, right? Showing respect, when to speak sometimes, and maybe when not to speak, and just understanding as a whole what the Tongan culture is about, so I could then give that to children. Now, why do I think that's important? Is we were kind of speaking briefly before the show started that the kids, their identity in America will traditionally just kind of gravitate to American style, right? Because we're in America.
Right.
But how do they represent themselves as a Tongan, right? How do they represent themselves and people know and keep the culture going as a Tongan? So when my kids were born, I knew that was something that was going to fall on my shoulders. That was a responsibility of mine. And I took it seriously.
Right.
I'm the one that, creates the costumes for my daughter's dance. I'm the one reaching out on to different aunties and cousins who might know someone that can help make costumes or get traditional ta'ovalas, get traditional kikias, and show the kids that, well, I'm not Tongan, I am Palangi, that it's important for me to immerse them in the culture, especially with the duty as a woman and as their mother. Mm-hmm. So I have to replicate you like Emily and Saini, I have to replicate what you do and watch you so that I can immerse and show my children. And so my earnest hope is that they grow up and they aren't just a half Palangi, half Tongan, right? I want them to be seen as someone strong in their Tongan culture, while understanding that they obviously come from America. Yes, they are half Palangi, but understand that while you're not in Tonga and you're not, you're not living there, you still have a culture to represent, which is full of, rich culture, family values, and so forth. So,
wow, thank you so much, Darcy. That's your. You were talking about how you do this to your family, to your kids, the importance of the culture for your kids. I wanted to ask this question. How about the kids? How they coping with it? How they balancing out those two cultures and how maybe they weave it together? How they doing with it? Because us with our kids here, even though we try to put in the Tongan culture, but some of them reject it. No, I'm American, even though I'm born from Tongan, but I'm American. I'm going to do American way. How are your kids doing?
Well, I'm strict. So I'm a strict parent, which is comes right in line with the Tongan culture. It's a lot of conversations and it's a lot of showing and doing. Mm-hmm. And it's okay, it's your graduation, it's your baptism, it's your this. You're going to dress in your Tongan attire. Well, I don't want to. Well, you don't have a choice. Mm-hmm. And I've gotten that a handful of times, but I'm thankful. I will say this, because I started them out so young, recognizing their Tongan culture, it's not even a question. They know it's my graduation, or I'm giving a talk at church, or I'm, going to do this or that. Well, you're going to represent your culture. You're going to dress in traditional clothes. You're going to do your project on Tonga, which they want to, because they love sharing the Tongan culture. So I think as long as, especially as a Palangi mom, a Palangi lady, that you're just pretending that you're not Palangi. You're Tongan, so you better figure it all out and get it going. Otherwise, you're going to get left behind, and your kids are going to grow up not like you're saying, not grasping their culture. And I'm fearful of that. I don't want what a lot of people will say, and excuse my language, a whitewashed child. I don't want that. That's far from what I ever want for my children. I want them, when they're asked, well, what are you? I want them to say, I'm Tongan. And I've told them, you have the choice to say, I'm half Tongan, half Palangi. It doesn't bother me. If you took out Palangi from there, that's fine. They're going to meet me. They're going to see me. They're going to figure it out, right? Mm-hmm. They're going to know that you're not full. But your looks come from being Tongan. If you looked at me, Sadie knows, she knows that my children, they look nothing like me. I have green eyes, white skin. I do have curly hair, so they do get my hair, and we're all a curly haired family. But I want them to stand proudly as a Tongan, not to be an imposter that they're full Tongan, but when they're asked, I'm a Tongan, and that packs so much of who they are, because that gets left behind being in a white American culture, if that makes sense.
Right. Yes.
So keeping that, I think, in the front of their minds, in the front of their identity, then there's no question. I'm Tongan.
Yeah.
Well, what does that mean? Right? What does that mean? I not just look like it. I don't just have a Kivalu or a Tongan last name. I wear my traditional clothes. I behave and do the pu'is. I do you know, the responsibility as a boy and a girl and what that means and honoring your sister. That's a huge thing with Matiaki and I as far as Fakoni goes. Like, it's something that Matiaki does drill into Fakoni is like your sister is like the queen of the house. Yes, your mom is a queen, but your sister is to be held to a high regard. And he understands that. And he does 90% of the time, he does very well. 10%, you're just like, oh my gosh, okay, dude, like, excuse me, no, sir. But 90% of the time, he's like, oh, I'm gonna catch some, you know what, if I don't get my act right. But he regards his sister highly, and I'm grateful for that. So, I think other than just looking Tongan and having the name, you have to wear your Tongan pride on your chest,
right?
And I think it's important. So. Prideful in a good, positive way, in a sense, you know, but that they know, because I feel as though, and I've seen, you know, Palangi women marry Tongan guys, and the culture does get lost because the Palangi mom isn't putting the effort in to bring that culture to the front, right? To wear that on their chest. So maybe it's intimidation, maybe they don't know how to ask, maybe they leave it to the aunties. I don't know, but far too many times what I see and what I don't want to happen is I don't want my children left behind in the culture. I want them to be able to be asked to dance, to be asked to speak. Matiaki has the big dream of New Zealand going to Miss Helala.
Wow.
She's going to be the first Kivalu to be back on the ring.
That's right.
Amazing.
But she understands some Tongan, but she doesn't speak. So my rule is if she tries out for Miss Helala, she has to speak Tongan. It's a must. I will not accept it any other way. So he better get on it.
Wow, amazing, Darcy. And listening to you is just even though I didn't raise my kids here, but I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
I'm so proud of you, and I think I can see some of our Tongans are tired of trying to weave together the Tongan culture and the Palangi culture, and they end up saying, that's enough. Let's just do the Palangi one. They are not as strong as you are, because you understand the importance of their ownership.
Yes.
You know, and like you said, you start from when the kids were still young, when it's easy. Because if we start like when they grow up to 14, 15, 16, they will say, oh, please, I'd rather do one culture instead of mixing those two. But you did a great job. Thank you. Coming down, sorry, I'm just going to give you my questions before we go on to Sifa.
Sifa can put his inputs to
Sifa can put in some inputs if you want. There's some comments from those that listen from the Facebook and say, you are such a great Palangi mom. I watch you and how you teach your kids. Proud of you. That's Laventa Alwesi.
Malo.
Let me say this.
Go ahead, Zane.
I was teaching her daughter how to dance, and to my surprise, when I called her, she was making the costume.
Wow.
And ako tango to ovare heksio ke Palangi koe nia o kune nofo o ngahi ano ki te matarunga ene ki ofefine. Pe aus patala mai ka te au ke o sio pe o kutono no ai tek teki. Pe o kutono ai ne vesa mo ki ye pe. Alo fetuku mai o tu kahoa mo o tu ta'awala ki o whahino hino ange ono hai. Pe asko e pa alurewa whai tarunga ni ki tahine he ako. Na onga te au e kusio ki ai. Ene fie tonga. O tui koe e ku keke fuloko maheni mo ia. Ka kuna aku sa ia apito he kusio ko ki ai hene ako e ne kaore ka. Ke tau urunganga whakafonua. Tai ko kure ai koe ke ne whanau. Oku onga ne whanau ki ai. Pea tawanga mahena ki pe, tai ko whawhaia hangahi POLOKALAMA whakawhamiri. Tatai taha pe ki asi mai hata hai aku marimuri ki ngahi mea pa family o whai.
That's true.
Ka koe ngahi polokalama wha family ko ia mau kau ki ai. Pai ki toi ha mea e na hao ki ai mana whanau.
Yeah.
Pe aku al mau pe hono hoa. Ai ko hono hoa ko ku first cousin. Ki ngai polokalama wha family o whai. O ku wongo ke te au heksio ki ai o ku ne hanga a koe ne whanau. Pag mau inga ki a te ia e ne anga a koe o ki ai hono e nau ai me ki tanga ma whangato whawhine o ne ki whanau.
Right.
Ako na upu o ware a pite heksio ke e ne tanguto ngahi e no te unga tau orunga. Te unga whaiwa e ne ki whanau e kia tahe toko ni pana si tā mai pe ke usio ang pe tonu ne ngawe o whai. I was amazed how you made a costume.
Right.
That's what I was sharing with them. And that really touches me, Tarsi, how you get into the culture and make that work with your kids. My question is, what is the impact of learning the culture for the kids?
Man, well, first, thanks for making me cry. I could understand partially what you're saying, and I could just feel the love coming through your words. Before I met my husband, I went to Tonga in 2005, and I went back in 2006, and I won't talk about details around it because some of it's great, some of it's not as great, but that's okay. It's not why we're here. So I saw for myself and witnessed for myself by spending the first time a month, the next time I think I spent another month, and then I went back again in like years later and met Matiaki. But anyways, I had the opportunity as a Balangi to just have, let's just say, the blanket, if you will, just the covers come off of my eyes. I got to live in Ha'ateho all of those times. So I can appreciate the love and hard work that mothers and grandmothers and aunts and sisters give. And I knew then, once I married my husband, that I had to match that. I had to be able to do that. My sister-in-law, Siosilahi, she really opened her arms up to me, and she is the one who made all of my children's traditional Tongan attire up until she passed away 6 years ago. And I knew that as I watched her sitting on the ground, just weaving and weaving and weaving, that all of this Tongan traditional clothing is so much meaning behind it, so much love, so much representation, so much tradition, so much family value, and I couldn't just put that in a bin and just put it in the closet and never use it. It's a little sad now because he's been gone for so long, so thankfully Nison's fitting into Fakoni's stuff when he was little, but I knew from then that this was something that had a lot of meaning and that my children needed to understand that and respect that and represent it. And so I knew from years long before I met my husband, the value that came behind Tongan traditional Tongan things and just Tongan traditions, if you will, because I witnessed it for myself before ever marrying a Tongan. And I respect it, and I'm grateful for it, and I loved it. And now you couldn't have told me that I'd go back and marry a Tongan, but I think all Heavenly Father's plan, right, to piece all of that together for you. But it's not just a matter of putting on a Tongan Paolunga outfit. It's all of that it represents, and all of the families that she's representing, or Sekoni's representing, and my son. That I bring that for everyone to see, that they know who the Kivalus are, that she represents such a strong grandmother and aunts and ancestors. That was incredibly important to me because I could feel the love given to me by my in-laws, given to me by my mother-in-law, my sister-in-laws, and that they cared enough to introduce weaving, introduce costumes, introduce the tauvalas, the kekias, the kahoas, all of that, so I would at least have an idea. And so I really attribute it to my sister-in-law, Siosilahi, and we call her Siosilahi because my daughter is named after her middle name, that I honor her and that I kept that tradition alive for her too. Before my mother-in-law passed away, she came here to the U.S. twice and spent 6 months with us both times. And she's a miraculous woman, having partially one of her feet gone due to diabetes and coming with no English and just making the trip to Fiji to get her visa and the trip here. And Nisi Lynn was only 18 months when she went back home, but Nisi Lynn knows her. Like, she knew her like she's been here a month ago. And same with my son. The work you put into building a relationship as a Palangi with your in-laws is so important. And what I wish more Palangi women would do is see past our culture, our American Palangi culture ways, and just dive in. And I get it's not easy for all, it's not everyone is as welcoming. I understand that, but I think you're welcomed when Tongans, and Saini, you could probably speak to this, when Tongans can see you as a Palangi just dive in and just not be afraid, you're appreciated as someone like, oh, you do see us. You do see us. You do see our culture. You do love us. And it's that validating moment for the family to see you put in the effort as a Palangi woman to keep the culture alive in your children.
It's true.
So all this to say, I have a very loving Kivalu family who I'm incredibly grateful for. I'm close with a lot of my nieces who are, children of my husband's cousins and so forth. And if more Palangi women, Palangi moms of Tonga, have Tongan children, could just get out of their minds as far as what they think they should be doing or not be doing, and then just because they just give up, that they just dove in, I think the better their children would be. I'm not saying my children are the best. I'm not saying do this and your children will be the greatest Tongans in the world. No. I'm just saying I'm really putting my best foot forward, and I'm really doing my best to keep this culture that my children have in them, the blood of, their Tongan heritage, alive in a culture that's not Tongan. It's American. So we have, honestly, a duty, I feel. It's a privilege to be able to share the culture with our children. But just getting out there and doing it. Like Saini was saying, I'm getting out all of these items to make her costume, and she doesn't have a kia, and I don't have anyone to call to make it, and she's got to dance within like 4 days. And I just went online and I just started looking, and I just started putting things together, and I'm messaging it to Saini like, hey, what do you think? And I made my first teki. And she's like, oh, it's so nice. And I just, it was a validating moment for me to complete that, number one. But number two, to watch my daughter, wear it with honor. And that was kind of like a crossover for me, if you will, right? Where I'm not Tongan, I'm Palangi, but I could make something that is so important to the Tongan culture, such as a teki, and put that effort into showing my love and respect for my family, my in-laws, for my children's culture. So and some may think, oh, it's just a teki, like whatever, we make costumes all the time. Like when you're a Palangi, you're scared to death. I'll just tell you, you don't know if you're doing it right. You don't know if you're using the right shells. You don't know if you're using this, that. It's supposed to be too tall. It's supposed to have feathers. We don't know. I don't know. So having Saini there too that's good. And by the way, you have to get the other white shell. I forget what it's called. Thank you. Yes, that one. And make sure you get that. And it's like, okay, got it. But I could have just said nothing and just kept my mouth shut and then just guessed. Well, why do that? Lean into the family, understand why it's important to have that on your neck and wearing that as a Tongan. So it's just as a whole, you know, my kids represent a really strong family. I feel as though my mother-in-law loved me as like her own child, and I'm the only belonging in the family, at least the immediate and the extended family, except for Tohikata, who just, you know, he married Linda a couple years ago, after his wife passed away. But, you know, I was loved from day one, and I was welcomed, and I attribute a lot of my want for my children being immersed in the culture to that. Because it could have been a harder road, and she could have just not accepted me and wished that I was Tongan, and she didn't. She's like, well, she's belonging, so here we go. And so we would, I mean, she'd be here, and Machiaki's working swing shift, I'm day shift, so at the evening it's just me and her and the kids in the evenings. And I don't think she cared for my belonging cooking, I will say that, and that's okay. That's okay. But all things considered, I always felt seen, loved, and heard by her. Always. And I always wanted to prove to her that her grandchildren were just as Tongan as her other grandchildren who are full Tongan. That her family traditions and her family life doesn't end because her grandchildren, her American grandchildren, are here. So that was something always in the back of my mind that I wanted to keep going, that she saw how important the culture was to me in honor of her, if that makes sense. That she didn't just, oh, my son married a belonging, I'm not going to have these grandchildren do the same things my other grandchildren do. I never want to experience that. Pivoting a little bit, I will say this. Children can travel at the age of 6 without a parent. So Fekuni turned 6 in March of 2020, and we planned to start sending him to Tonga for the summers, but then COVID hit. So that went out the window. But for any listeners, your children can travel without you. And our goal was, because, I mean, Nisan was so little, that we would just send him and, you know, have his auntie pick him up in New Zealand, put him on the plane to Tonga, and then obviously his uncle would pick him up, and you pay the stewardess watch you. So it's completely safe. But, you know, I even considered doing that. I was game. If COVID never hit, he would probably be speaking Tongan. But starting this summer, he'll go every summer, and that's where he'll be for 45 days of summer. And people are like, oh, you can go that long without your kids? I said, it's not that I can go that long without my kids. It's that how much less his family goes without him, right?
Yes. Wow.
I took Fekuni just before he turned 2 because it was free. He could be on my lap, so it was free, and I'd been there twice already. So I'm like, okay, I know what I've got a grip on this. I know how to get there and get home as a belonging. And I'll tell you, man, it was just the best experience. If I could replicate that for him every single summer, I definitely would have. But, you know, work schedules, be able to afford it, and, you know, you don't show up without a puha. Like, I know that too. You better be ready. Which, again, having gone there, I understand. You know, we'll come home with no clothes, leave the suitcases, you're fine. But I'm grateful for that opportunity at the same time, right? I'm grateful. So it's important for belonging moms as well, if you're listening, and I hope they are, to let your children go. Let them go. You are going to see them the remaining 320 days of the year. What do we have? 300, and can I do math in my head? I'm only doing mortgages. 310 days, whatever. 45 days a year. You get them the other 300 something, you're fine. Yeah. But how much prouder can you be of your child who comes back with a different view on life, a different perspective, maybe a little more grateful, maybe a little changed in their hearts and emotions on who they are as a Tongan, having been there and stayed there for a significant amount of time, like a month and a half, or 2 months. So I want to encourage parents. This will be our first year. He is going with dad because we have headstone to do for Pila, and they've got some other things for family. But in the event Matiaki can't go every year, he will still go. And then New will follow him when she gets older. So I think that's another important piece to talk about is sending your children to Tonga for the summer. Send them. It's worth every penny. It's worth every penny. And there's so many that work in the airlines. No one can tell me that they can't find a way to get there with some cousin's buddy pass through Australia or whatever. But yeah.
Thank you, Darcy.
So sorry. I kind of went a little long. I apologize. Oh.
Thank you, Darcy. Si pagkatagi ki o mai hao opinion ke tau tatano e piapini.
Iyo. Seni, o hio ko uhu to mui mai heka ki to famore hawat pe e tala fata po sfai. Pea kage mau e famatala fafofa ko fai e fine. Kako, I'd like to keep my respect for your view and what you're saying. I think it's important to see a mother love her children and do the best for them, and why you like the Tongan culture and those things. I think you can see the wisdom in the Tongan culture of how to hold a family together. It's like a family-oriented stuff.
Absolutely.
And I think you saw that's very beautiful. And I think it's very, the Tongan culture is rich with beautiful things like that, like the dancing. One of the things that I'm here in this program to support Saini because of what Saini is doing with the children's dancing. And those are things that catch my attention. Like you said, you open up your mind. There's a time in your life that you open up your mind and see this thing. And to me, I mean, at this time of my life, I open my mind out to see. It's important to me to talk about how to deal with our children and how we teach them and how we hearing you for what you do for your children. And I think it's very important for every one of us to hear it. It's encouragement to go forward. And I think there is beautiful things in every people, but the Tongan culture is very rich. I think because of the music they have, and there's a lot of pride to take on those kind of things, and it's good for the children to grow up with it, in my opinion. And I think I'm grateful for what you say. Before I say something in Tongan, I think there's a lot of listeners that they wanna hear this. They want to hear clearly what is being said, and I'd like to say it in Tongan.
Oh, absolutely.
Say ni ka hoi mo kai nga whanongo mo mea mai ko tui koe tānoa ko ni whai he e whine o ne hanga o mai whakaofa ia koe i he hanga i he tawanga whakawhonua he wai whai ngā maa wahengo ne kōti ko ni koe ai me hek tā ngā mo whahu mo mea ai organize koe ai hanga whakatonga o kuia i rewa pa mo respect ai i he waha koe ngahi angai nofo he te koe ka teo koe e sein ka maa Emily koe whakaapa koe mea oku mahu inga koe konga e ulunganga he pe ne ai o maa e nofo he ka pae kai ke whakaapa ki ai ai whakaapa ki o kai ke maa e nofo i hango e tau tāno koe sein i he Emily i he POLOKALAMA koe fofolai whara ki he ulunganga. Pau kawe whakaapa koe ni whakaapa i culture i he mea au whahe māwe nofo. Ko tui lahi au ki ai o ku taulao peo si o mata ki ai. Ko ngahe koe ngā aue koe ia koe ngā aue ai poto. Ai koe wisdom o ku ia i he culture. Ai koe ia ku hinga koe ki ai koe tau olunga mo mea. O kuiai ai wo ngataha pe mo me ai ko kausa ko a Tonga ku ne o mai ai wo ngataha ke kakai pe o wa ko fa na u na tu po ke hangi ko me ko fa se ni ko anga e ku viwa ku ka ko fa malo ko nga ko fa no ki fa matar fa fu ko fa e fini ko tu fa no ma pe ai ka u tau tol ma tu ko tau ta no na tau tol ko tu ko la ta hai tau ta no ka tau tol tau fa na ke hanga ko tau e ta honga fika i ko en ko ai ako e tau whanau mohono hino ina tolu ki he nau kahau. E ko tui koe koloa maha inga tai au tau teu I, ko ka hau e whanua, ka mo ka hau e siasi, ka hau e family. Aia ko young people, ko kau ko mea ko mau inga ia I ko he tānoa ko ni I he ulunganga. Ka ko ilo ko tānoa ki he tau hi whanau. Ka ko whaamu ko ngā fuko e tau whanau, ko ngā ki e tau whanau. Ka ko tui ka taim ko e koneke e umea ka o ngā awe. Ki au ko kau ia mea ko mau inga ia ia. Ka ko tui ko e pe kau whanau mai. Se ni mo Emily ko ki lawa e te pe ia kau tuku ate nau ki hu tō mui mai e tau POLOKALAMA. Ko konga ia. Ki he tānoa ko ne whae pārangi nau toi mau. Ko ia me?
Malo apito Darcy, malo apito Sifa. Ko tui ko tau palawalawe I Whiawhini. It's very important that we touch base on how to preserve the culture, especially inside our own family. Teaching them while they're young. And that's the most important part of our work here in the Langakali is to preserve the culture to the rising generations. And we start from home. Everything starts from home. The parents and our kids, and then we come up to the community. Koe konga maho inga ia o tau ngāwe kia I he Langakari. Koe kawe ai kauta whakatonga ia I he ange o wofiki he vani. I he tau taimko tau puke ai koe ai kauta whakatonga I api. I ai rewa ta ilo peto o taha kotoa hono tuunga ma ne mea ke whai. It's such a beautiful culture. At the same time, we're just going to talk about more next week for the system, how we work ai Langakari. Ki he ngai whakatutu ma ngai tamu a ngā awe a Langakari ma ai community. O whamahaloa taipe. I'd like to give thanks to those that have been donating to our uniforms. Ai Langakari ke tau watu o tokoni atua I ki Tonga. Probably in 2 weeks we will send our uniforms back to Tonga to help out those high schools that are in need of our help. I taimini pamalo ato I peka te motoro ngai mātua hangibe mo lawe I koe Langakari is a general platform that preserves the culture. And o whetupe ko ngā whaosi kia Emeri, ko Emeri ko tare ki taia o e festival ai Langakari. And a wrap up katoa mai e tau conversations ko I he Whiawhini. And Darcy, we are honored to have you, and we thank you for your opinions and your experiences that has touched a lot of us that have been listening to your thoughts and opinions about our culture.
Malo
Keep it up. And I can't wait to teach her how to dance when she grows older.
Yes, yeah? Absolutely. You'll be
Thank you for your time, Darcy.
Malo.
Yeah. We're going to wrap it up. We're going to bring it out at the Kita Festival of America and Ekataki. Paga maabomba. Opa mai e tau. Pota no he Whiawhini.
Malo bito seini, malo Sifa, and thank you so much, Darcy. A lot of people on Facebook are appreciating your sharing of your experience.
Thank you.
And just to wrap up, I have experienced kids that grow up here in America, not even learn the Tongan words. And around 20 years old, they start complaining and said even to their father and their mother, why didn't you teach me how to speak in Tongan? And then they end up look for Tongan dictionary. They end up look for courses, Tongan language courses to learn how to speak Tongan. They even complain, why don't you tell us this is how we do the whakau system? Why don't you tell us this? Why don't you tell us that? Right. I have seen that. And it breaks my heart.
Right.
Yeah. And even the couples, the parents are they start regretting it. And even up to now, right now they're 20, 30 years old. They even say, why don't you guys have any Tongan koloa? because they end up married to Tongans. You know, even though they brought up in the pure English Whakapalangi way, but they end up married to Tongans. And when they try to fix into that culture, it's like a Palangi trying to fix into the Tongan culture, but they are both parents are Tongan. And it's a big loss. It's a big loss and a confusion of their identity. You know? So what he's sharing today is a learning for all of us mothers here too. That we need to do that from when the kids are still young. Because if we're gonna do it when they start to grow up, it not only confuse them, and they will hate one or the other. Yeah.
Good point. Yeah.
So your story today is encouraging and it's empowering us women to do it and do it now. Don't wait until they start to question.
Right.
Yeah. And the most important thing from your story is that you root that identity in them, and it's going to be a root that they will never ever take it out as they grow up, because you never know, they might end up marry a Tongan. And if they marry a Palangi, it's easy. It's going to be easy both ways. So we really appreciate it, and I know that you're supporting Talanga Kari too with our work, trying to preserve our culture, especially with our kids. And thank you, Darcy, for that. And we wish that you will come back later.
Anytime. Thank you for the opportunity. This has been a beautiful experience to even. I had in my mind what I will say, but as we talk and you feel the beauty of the conversation, the humility, it just goes its own way, right? And your heart tells you, this is what I have to say, this is what I have to share. So thank you for the opportunity. I will say this, I was surprised when she gave me the invitation. I'm like, that's very validating for me. That someone would want to hear what I have to say and get my perspective, right? Because I'm just going along the best I can, assuming I'm doing it somewhat right. And so it helps my heart and gives me that confidence that, okay, you're doing it right, keep going. You just don't stop. Just don't stop. And it doesn't matter who anyone says or does, you keep going. So thank you for the opportunity and the blessing to be amongst you.
One more thing that I would like to say. Even these kids grow up and then they go to school and then they come back and ask their parents, you know what happened? Even though I was born here, but I'm still classified as a Tongans. I am still a Tongan. So I'm not classified as an American. I'm still a Tongan, even though I was born here. So that makes them more confused. Anyway, but thank you so much, Darcy. Whamaloa te ni pia mo si whakotui e te lahi o tau taimi e tau POLOKALAMA ka hoko mai. Ka kotui Langakali is a supporting system for mothers like you, Darcy.
Malo.
They will continue to support and to continue to empower more women and more mothers that wanted to do what you're doing. Not only for the Palangi, but the Tongans too.
Yes.
As long both. It's not only for the Palangi.
But the Palangis could improve. I'll say that. I see them. They could improve.
But thank you, Darcy. Malo bito sa ini, malo leseli. Till then, tato ki fitau laki wika o POLOKALAMA tatau. Whamalo ai peke ka o whanongo malo mo mea mai katau mawaya o whatu. O whalahi atu. Ni moto bea mai e ke POLOKALAMA ko ia Langakari o Vaiko Puna. Bea ko ia whawhi ki moto taim tatau I he wike kahau. Te tau hokoko atoa ia tālanga. Bea mo e POLOKALAMA ko ia o Langakari o Vaiko Puna. Maho inga no whakaivia ki tau tolu tonga, pia mo ki nau to whikau aki, pia mo ho tau ulunganga whakafonua. Te tau ki lepahe, osko ia pati utoe kamata fo